Hello and welcome to Weekly MTG, the only show coming to you from metaphorically inside the building at Wizards of the Coast. We are, of course, at home. I'm Blake Rasmussen, your host, and I am joined today by one Corey Bowen, who was instrumental in making Midnight Hunt, particularly the commander side of things. So, Corey, welcome. Why don't you tell the people at home what your involvement was in this set?
Sure. Hi, Blake. Thanks so much for having me here. So for Midnight Hunt, I was the set lead for the two commander decks to release with Midnight Hunt. I led the design of creating those two decks, designing those two decks, making all the new cards, and of course all of the new set booster exclusive cards that are aimed at commander players as well.
Great. Well, today on the show, we're going to spend a lot of time with Corey. We are down one Chris Mooney, who maybe will join us later. We'll see. We'll see. If we can, great. If not, Corey will guide us through what we're going to talk about today. So, what we've got today, you can see down at the bottom, we got some main set previews, we got some commander previews, and we're going to talk through the face cards of the new commander decks. And we're going to talk through both the previously previewed and one new card of the commander cards found in set boosters. And just a reminder, the bulk of the commander cards, the two commander decks, are being previewed on Monday the 13th. The 13th, because it's the 13th. Why not? But before we get to that, we've got a little bit of news to go over. So let's do the news. First up, we have four players who qualified this past weekend through the MPL and Rivals Gauntlets. So congratulations to these four players. And then additionally, they qualified for Worlds, which leads us to this bigger list of 16 players qualified for Worlds. Bringing the heat. So the World Championship is October 8th through 10th. You'll be able to view it on twitch.tv/magic the 8th through the 10th. Also happening this week, we had a Pauper BNR announcement. Shatterstorm and Sojourner's Companion were banned to knock Storm and Affinity down a peg. The announcement was made on Daily MTG on Wednesday, so you can check out that article for the explanation. As part of that explanation, we noted that we're knocking these two sets down a peg, or these two decks down a peg, but also keeping an eye on how the metagame shakes out from there. And that's all the news we have for this week because, we got previews. We got previews to talk about. We got new cards to talk about. We'll answer your questions. Go ahead and put your questions in chat. We do have dedicated Q&A time at the end. But you know what? If we get to stuff in the meantime and it makes sense, we'll pepper in some chat questions here and there. But we're going to start out with a pair of preview cards from the main set, which Corey didn't work on the main set, but obviously it's pretty closely tied to the Commander products. He's going to share a little bit about those cards at that point. So let's just kick it off. Let's do some previews. So the first one, Malevolent Hermit and Benevolent Geist. Malevolent Hermit, the front side is a 2 mana, 1 and a blue, creature human wizard. It's a 2/1. And for a blue mana and sacrificing it, you can counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 3. So kind of a mana leak for non-creature spells. And then it's got Disturb. So once you've sacrificed your Hermit, it can come back for the Disturb cost, and it can be a 2/2 flyer where non-creature spells you control can't be countered. And of course, it's got the extended art frame version there as well. Corey, can you tell us a little bit about Disturb?
Yeah, so Disturb is obviously a new mechanic in Midnight Hunt. It's kind of our way to give spirits another kind of mechanical identity that feels really resonant, feels really cool, and of course works with the graveyard because Innistrad is a world full of very resonant, spooky creature types like spirits and full of graveyard mechanics. Flashback, obviously being a very popular mechanic on instants and sorceries, Disturb is kind of mimicking that structure of once you've used your card, if it's in your graveyard, you can get it back, or in this case, get an enhanced version back or a different version back. And what's great about Disturb in Blue is you don't have to wait for Malevolent Hermit to die. You don't need to play it manually. There's plenty of ways Blue can get cards in the graveyard. You can self mill, you can discard with looting effects. There's just a lot of different fun to be had with Disturb. And I just think the flavor is really cool seeing the story of the front side and what that character becomes when they become a spirit in the afterlife.
And Corey, we got a question in chat that I think is a good one to highlight because there are
Yeah.
kind of two types of double-faced cards in this set.
Mm-hmm.
There are the werewolves that have Danebound and Nightbound, and then there are disturbed ones like this. So the question was, so the Hermit still comes into play face up even if it's night. Can you talk about the differences between those two types of cards?
Yeah, sure. So the day and night mechanic works with the transforming rules only on cards that have daybound or nightbound. In this sense, Disturb, it is a double faced card. It does not have daybound and nightbound. And flavorfully, like, this is a humble hermit. And when he's dead, he's dead. He's not coming back as a hermit again. He'll come back as a spirit. It doesn't make sense for day to come and then him to become fleshy again, I guess. Uh, that's kind of the main idea. And Disturb is mostly a recursion mechanic. I don't think it would fit very well if it was bound to just day bound and night bound. We wanted a
Mhm.
lot more freedom to make cool resonant cards that was just outside the day night schematic.
Speaking of which, that's a great segue to our next card, which is actually I said there were two types. This is a third type. There's actually a third type of double face card that neither has disturb, nor is daybound or nightbound. We've actually seen some ones that have unique trigger conditions to transform, and this is one of them. Two characters we've come to know and love over the years: Jaren Corrupted Bishop and Ormandal the Corrupter has the Eternal Night version there on the right side as well. So Jaren Corrupted Bishop is a 3 mana, 2 and a black, 2/3 legendary creature, human cleric. So that's going in my cleric deck for sure. When Jaren Corrupted Bishop enters the battlefield or another non-token human you control dies, you lose a life and you create a 1/1 human creature token. And then you can give for 2 mana. Target human you control gains lifelink until end of turn, including Jaren. And then at the beginning of your end step, if you control exactly that spooky number of 13 life, you may pay 4 and 2 black. If you do, transform Jaren into everyone's, well, maybe not your favorite Innistrad demon, but it's definitely up there. Ormandal the Corrupter, a legendary creature demon. This one is a 6/6. It's got flying, it's got trample, it's got lifelink. And then that really cool line of text: sacrifice another creature, draw a card.
Oh yeah.
This card seems powerful, Corey.
Oh yeah, like I love Commander. I play a ton of Commander, and I look at this card, and I'm really, really excited by this. And of course, this isn't the first time we've seen Ormandal. Ormandal was in the previous time we went to Innistrad. We had a land that transformed in this sweet demon, and now we have
Mm-hmm.
Jaren, who is doing all the work by himself. And Jaren has, I think, a lot of different applications. You said he would be perfect in your cleric's deck. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking he'd be perfect in my humans deck,
Yep.
building off of Ikoria Commander, the Mardu
Mm-hmm.
humans deck in that set. And even if you're not trying to build a list that cares about humans or clerics, making 1/1 tokens when your creatures die is great for any aristocrat strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And as a mono
Yep.
black commander, I actually think there's a lot of really fun play with trying to finagle your life down to 13 in a safe way. Jaren, he's got ways to lose life very controlled. He's got ways to gain life very controlled. And I just think it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
a lot of fun to try to, you know, balance your life total right into the right spot because
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice a creature to draw a card, that's not too bad. That can
Yeah.
really get your engine going, especially when your front side is making you so many creatures to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you and I both immediately go to Commander because that's our,
Oh yeah.
main format of choice. But this card is clearly very strong in, 60 card formats as well, especially since that 13 life clause, much easier to achieve when you
Oh yeah.
start at 20.
A lot less tumultuous on that journey when you're at 20
Yep.
life.
Yep, exactly. So, and again, just making humans when creatures die, when this enters the battlefield, it already immediately comes with a token. Uh, Lifelink can help raise aggressive decks. There's a lot going on with this card, so I think we're going to be seeing a lot of Jaren and a lot of Ormandal coming up.
Yeah, that art too. Both of these art pieces are just wonderful. I love that
Oh yeah.
alternate art with that scratch work and the different perspectives of Jared and Ormandal on the normal version just looks really
Hmm.
awesome.
Yeah, it does. All right, so now we will move on to Commander. Let's so here's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna start by talking, and just to set expectations here, we're gonna start by talking about the two face cards. Then we're
Mm.
gonna move into talking about the already previewed commander cards and set boosters. And then we will show off our new preview card. There's a reason for that order besides just stringing along, although you know what? It's kind of fun on my part, but also because a lot of the discussion leads into the final preview card. So let's start with the commander face cards, and let's talk about the design of those, the kind of impetus for the deck themes. Let's start with Lenore Autumn Sovereign. So this is a legendary creature. Obviously, it is Helming Commander deck. Human Noble for 2, a green, and a white. It's a 0/4. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on up to one target creature you control. Then, if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, draw a card. Love seeing draw a card on that. Corey, tell us about the creation of this card and generally about the deck.
Yeah, so, Midnight Hunt, the big thing going on in Innistrad. There's a Harvest Tide festival. All the humans, or many of the humans, are getting together and getting a bunch of pumpkins and stuff and hanging out. And there's this new coven mechanic that cares about having 3 or more creatures with different powers. That is not like a unique build around that we've had before. So in Vision Design, we were thinking, okay, what are the 2 decks we want to do for this Innistrad set? And we thought it would be cool to approach decks that kind of fit the flavor of what each of the tribes were kind of trying to do. Um, so this is a humans aligned deck. It's green white, like the humans are in Innistrad. It cares about Coven because it's kind of really interesting to achieve your different number of powers among your creatures. Um, and what's a great way to manipulate the powers among your creatures is using +1/+1 counters, another famously loved mechanic of green white. So that's kind of what Lenore is doing. And she's themed after the Harvest Tide Festival. You can see all these awesome pumpkins around her. She's very specifically able to manipulate your creature's powers so that you can get your bonus for having Coven and have all your other Coven bonuses come on, and have other bonuses for having many creatures of different powers. We started her at 0/4, was kind of interesting. We had her at like a 1/4 or a different stat line early before, but we realized that having a 0 power creature was a pretty was a buff in this deck because you wanted different powers and you don't have that many 0 power creatures in your
Mm-hmm.
deck. So all of these things kind of came together to Lenore. She's very usable, very good at doing the Coven thing. And I think the deck is really cool. I think it'll surprise you how fun it is to get all the different powers together.
Mm-hmm. All right, Corey. This is a question we've talked about it in a couple other places, but it's a very popular question, and we've seen it in chat already. And since you were responsible for these decks, I'm looking directly at you, Corey. Why
Yeah,
is there
me.
no werewolf deck? Why is there no
Oh,
werewolf deck?
well, you can learn all about it in one of Gavin Verhey's Good Morning Magic videos. Essentially, it all boils down to yes, chat. I wanted a werewolf deck. We all wanted a werewolf deck, but logistical issues. We can't do double face cards in the commander pre-constructed decks. But uh, don't you fret. We tried very hard and we worked the commander, the group of designers who helped work on commander a lot. We worked really hard together with the main set so that the main set would have a werewolf legendary that was really good for commander, and
Mm-hmm.
we ended up in that spot with the Werewolf Legendary that is already spoiled.
Yep.
I think that card is sweet for werewolves, and I think it does a really good job adapting or using the new nightbound, daybound mechanic with werewolves, but also being a commander that lets all of your old werewolves transform in the same uh,
Hmm.
pattern, I guess.
Yeah, Tovolar is the card you're
Tovolar, oh
talking
yeah.
about. Yeah, and it's got the clause that will not only it transform, but it'll bring your other human werewolves specifically with it when it transforms.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the card is quite good.
Oh,
So
it's
yeah, that's the story behind why no werewolf deck. Werewolves get plenty of love in this set, so there's a lot to love if you're a werewolf fan. There's also a lot to love if you are a zombie fan. So let's talk about the next face card. You like that transition? That was a great transition. It's like I do this
yeah.
sometimes. We have I'm gonna say this is Vilhelt, the Rot Cleaver. I don't know if it's Wilhelt or Vilhelt, but I think it's Vilhelt. Anyway, Vilhelt, the Rod Cleaver, is the other face card. It is a 2 and a blue and a black legendary creature, zombie warrior. It is a 3/3. Whenever another zombie you control dies, if it didn't have Decayed, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. And then at the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice a zombie. If you do, draw a card. So, first of all, tell us about Decayed and how that fit into the zombies of this set.
Yeah, so in the main set in Midnight Hunts, there's a bunch of zombie tokens with Decayed running around, and what that essentially means is that they're tokens, they can't block, but when they attack, you sacrifice them. So they're definitely weaker than your average 2/2 zombie, but what they let you do is make a lot more of them for less mana because they have this drawback. And one of the core fantasies of zombies is just to have a horde of a bunch of zombies that look really scary, but they're kind of shambling, they're kind of weak, but there's a lot of them. And so Decayed really helps us push on this zombie generation and just make a ton of these scary zombies.
Mhm. All right, and then Corey, I'm not sure. Before we get into what the deck is all about,
Yeah.
how well do you know the lore around Wilheld?
How
We
well
got a
do I know
lore
the lore?
question here.
I personally don't know a ton about the lore of our favorite abd zombie here.
Okay, we'll save that question for another time then. All right, so tell us about. So obviously, this is a zombie commander. Tell us kind of generally about what that deck is going to look like when people see the full list on the 13th.
Yeah, so the zombie deck, basically, we sat down. It's like, okay, want to make a zombie deck. Want to use the decayed zombies. Want to find a great way to make a bunch of zombie tokens, and I think Wilhel is doing that pretty well. Um, this deck is kind of two parts. It's like half of it is this love letter of mine to like I love blue black zombies. It's been a while since people have played blue black zombies, since it's been in the limelight. Let's just give players a reminder of how cool that deck archetype is.
Mm-hmm.
Other half of it is, hey, blue black zombies is usually about a lot of recursion or a lot of go wide. Well, what if we play up more of the sacrifice angle? And so that's why Wilhelm has that sacrifice a zombie ability at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So the deck just plays with sacrificing a lot more because that's another really great way to use decayed tokens is as sacrifice fodder. So I think it's just going to be a very awesome quintessential blue black zombie deck with a little bit of a sacrifice theme for people looking for something new.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. All right, let's move on to the commander cards that are going to be in set boosters. So, first of all, producer Sean, if you could put the set booster graphic up on, oh, look at that. He knew what I was asking for. God, he's so good at this. Uh, so, in every set booster, there is a slot that contains two double or single faced. That's common, uncommon, rare, or mythic. That's the fourth one down. And you can see that among that, it can contain commander cards. And you can also get the cards that we're about to discuss in collector boosters as well. But there's some commander focused cards that are not in the two commander decks because they didn't fit for whatever reason, but they were still cool cards and we wanted to make them. So let's talk through each of those and then we'll we'll end it with a little exclamation mark on revealing the one that has yet to be revealed. So let's start with a card that can only exist on this plane, Addison's Memorial. So Addison's Memorial is an 8 mana, 5 and 3 white legendary artifact with indestructible, and other legendary permanents you control have indestructible. Corey, tell us about this very sad but very powerful artifact.
Yeah, I mean, this is Addison's Memorial. Addison is such a key character to the history of Innistrad. All the other Innistrad sets, Addison was a big key player. And I thought that it would be great using a mythic slot of these exclusive cards to have some sort of strong nod to Addison. I think there was a strong nod to Gristlebrand and that spoiled equipment already in the main set, and I wanted to make a strong nod to Addison, and I thought taking up some sort of memorial would make a lot of sense in world. It could be a really fun reference to Akroma's memorial, since Akroma was another beloved large angel. And we were like, okay, let's kind of mimic the original Addison's quintessential text. Let's mimic Addison's mana cost and have this really lovely, charming callback to a very beloved card.
Great. Next up, we've got Curse of Obsession. Curse of Obsession. So this card, which we'll get up on the screen in a moment. There it is. A 4 or 5 mana curse. So we've seen curses associated with Innistrad in the past, and this is another in a long line of curses. Enchant player, as most curses do. At the beginning of enchanted player's draw step, that player draws 2 additional cards. That doesn't seem like a curse. At the beginning of enchanted player's end step, that player discards their hand. Okay, there's the curse part. Corey, talk a little bit about this card and how this ended up in the set booster list.
Yeah, there's a lot of dimensions to this card. So I love curses. I think curses are really sweet. Think curses are really fun, and I really wanted to make a curse. And this curse, I also love Avarice Dragon. Avarice Dragon. I don't know. It's a dragon that does a very similar effect, but it really sucks when someone destroys your creature. Your creature dies that was discarding your hand the whole time. Curse of Obsession is intentionally designed so sometimes you can curse yourself. It's designed so that if there's a player in your commander game who is drawing 100 cards, they have a Reliquary Tower out, they have a huge hand, you can kind of stopgap their card draw with Curse of Obsession. You're not completely mind twisting them. They're going to draw more cards to make up for it. They should feel pretty sated, but you're going to keep people who are drawing too many cards from, well, drawing too many cards. And on yourself, if you're playing a very aggressive deck, you like to empty your hand, this could just be quite a powerful card draw engine. And again, I love curses. I want to make a curse here. One of the reasons it's here is because actually neither of the pre-constructed decks are red. So any red cards we wanted to make and develop for Commander and Midnight Hunts, well, we had to put them in the set booster exclusives. And I'm a big fan of curses, and maybe you'll see more of that later.
Okay. Now there was a cycle that can be found here that makes up kind of the bulk of this list. The visions. So let's throw all 5 visions up on the screen. So I'm not going to read all of these off, but they are all sorceries that do a thing, and then for the flashback, they do the thing bigger.
You bet.
So yeah, talk about where these cards came from, Corey. Why we have this entire cycle here?
Yeah, so kind of the impetus of having some of these commander cards in the set booster slot is that if a new player were to purchase a booster, theoretically they would be purchasing a set booster because it's a great way to collect new cards. And we thought it would be really cool if there were a few cards in the set booster that would say, hey, Commander exists. Commander's cool. Hey, go look at this card. It says something about Commander. Go check it out. So the very seed for these cards, I was sitting and I was trying to think about, what would be some cards that would be really fun for Commander, would feel like they take place on Innistrad in a very resonant way, while also in some way or form having the word commander to kind of give a hook for any passerbyers in the set booster to find commander. And that's where these guys come in. They all have flashback for 10 mana, but that flashback is reduced by the greatest mana value of a commander that you have. Um, this is also, for what it's worth, a initiative that some of the commander team at Wizards is trying to do. We're kind of interested in exploring design space that helps out larger costed commanders. I think right now, Commander having a low cost commander is a pretty big advantage, and we're kind of interested in giving some cookies to legendary creatures that are maybe a little bit heavier costed. But
Mm-hmm.
onto these specific cards, if you notice, a lot of these cards they don't do something bigger when you flash it back, but they certainly are really good when you do them twice. For Visions of Glory, you're making a 1/1 for every creature you control. Do that again, you are quadrupling your creatures. For Visions of Dread, the black one, it's kind of interesting that your opponent is actually choosing a creature card in their graveyard to put on the battlefield. So if they have two creature cards in their graveyard, you can use Visions of Dread twice to fish out their good one. Or maybe there's just
Mm-hmm.
two opponents with one creature card, and you can use it how you want. I really like how that one's a little bit more open. Um, Visions of Dominance, the green one, is another one that if you do it twice, it kind of quadruples the number of counters going on with the additional counter. So, really big fan of that one. Really big fan of the frog. Very cool. I also really like the blue one. The blue one's something that you wouldn't really play ever in a two-player game because it doesn't work in a two-player game, but it's got this really interesting play where you can just kind of mess with two of your opponents by switching their creatures control. And then if you want to, you can just do that again to maybe another opponent, and you can kind of make these creatures shuffle around in this kind of whimsical way. And I thought that was very fun. I love just kind of messing with people in Commander a little bit and keeping them on their toes. Uh, and then Visions of Ruin, obviously, it's powerful to everyone. Edict and Artifact, and edicts, of course, mean a lot more when you can do it a second time, and of course, be great treasure token. Um, it's actually interesting. Visions of Ruin, it's quite easy to edict people and then have treasure so you can edict them again. I think that card is quite a potent artifact edict, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I also want to call out the world building team for these cards. The art of them is awesome. If you notice, like every single concept of the art, uh, it's an action or a scene or a figure, and there's always a reflection on each of one of these arts that kind of symbolize the flashback happening a second time in a different way. I think that ended up looking really, really sweet. Overall, I'm very, very happy with these cards. I'm really excited to play them in any deck I can, basically.
Nice. And look at that, producer Sean ready with a close up of an art.
Good
Um,
job.
yeah, no, he's good. He's good at what he does. He knows the way around getting things up on the screen. Um, which of these visions is your favorite, Corey, and why?
Uh, my favorite is the blue one. I want to be in a four-player commander game. I want to, let's say I have opponent A, B, and C. I want to switch the creatures of opponent A and B, and then I want to switch the creatures of B and C so I can get opponent A's creature to opponent C's side. That is very hard to digest what I said verbally, but I just kind of like. I think shuffling people's creatures around is just so funny, um, and it's hard to visualize the impact that has on a game and the value that has, but I'm sure there are many situations where it is just the coolest thing to do, and
Mm-hmm.
I want to do that so bad. I just want, hey, that person has a Butcher of Malakir. No, 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 we're gonna shuffle that all the way to this person just for no
Mm-hmm.
reason. So that's what I'm excited about.
That makes sense. Chat is excited about the green one because it has Baby Gitrog on it, and it's
It's
really hard to beat. Doesn't even matter what the card does; it's got Baby Gitrog,
just erase all the text and write Frog Baby, and that'll be the card.
Frog Baby
Hmm.
with dreams of becoming Big Frog. All right. that is going to lead us to our our actual preview card from the. So, a reminder: this is the last card that is showing up in that set booster slot, and can only be found there in collector boosters. And it is a new legendary creature. Also, reminder: before we get to that, I'm going to draw this out as much as possible. Deal with it. We I'm writing down questions, so if you have questions, put them in chat. I've been keeping track of some of them, and then after we talk about the preview card, we will answer your questions, or at least the ones we can. All right, so without further ado, let's look at Lind, Cheerful Tormentor. Lind, Cheerful Tormentor is a 1 blue, black, and a red legendary creature, human warlock. It is a 2/4 with Death Touch. Here it is, your curse commander. Whenever a curse is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, return it to the battlefield attached to you at the beginning of the next end step. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you may attach a curse attached to you to one of your opponents. If you do, draw 2 cards. All right, Corey, tell us about this curse commander.
Oh yeah, this one I'm very excited about. Finally, a commander that deals with curses. We knew we wanted to make a curse commander from the start. It was a very awesome Innistrad resonant thing. It felt really cool. It felt like this was the time. So we started working on a curse commander, and so we started play testing curse commanders, and we played curse commanders that would like do a lot of benefits for your curses, and we're at this point where if I play a deck devoted to curses and commander, the gameplay ends up like I'm just funneling all my curses to one player, and that player just is pretty sad because they are very heavily hindered, and that's not a super fun game experience. So we thought about this thing where what if Lind was cursing yourself in some way? What if you attached a curse to yourself, and on your upkeep, if you endured it for a turn, you got to give it to someone else to finally curse them, and then you just get some cards. That felt really cool. That red curse we saw earlier that could be beneficial if you cursed yourself. That is kind of playing into Lynn's strength of, okay, I'm going to do a curse. Maybe it'll be beneficial for me for a turn, and then I'll send it to someone who I think it's going to have a very different story on. Also, the second ability, whenever a curse is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, return it attached to you. That was our way from just like getting some curses easier to. Basically, if you curse someone, if you went to the work to play your curse and they just removed it, we thought it'd be cool to bring it back, put it on you, so you can dish it back out and draw 2 cards to kind of make your curses a little bit more resilient. Yeah, in addition, if you just like cursed a few people, or you have someone with a bunch of curses on them and that person loses the game, this is a 4-player game, what are you doing now? Well, that person loses the game, all your curses come back attached to you, and you get to dole them out, draw more cards. So we thought this was a really interesting way to do a curse commander, a little bit different than what you'd expect. I think this deck is going to be pretty interesting to kind of be like, what curse do I think I can suffer through for a turn, so I can draw some cards, or I'll just curse my opponents and I'll be able to get my curses back. They'll be resilient. So I'm really interested in see how this works out. And for those people who are looking pretty deep at the art, you'll notice a very familiar figure in that puppet's shape there.
Mm-hmm. Chat already figured that out. That is our cursed planeswalker, who's shown up on a number of curses, always getting the short end of the stick. Poor guy.
Yeah, that is the unluckiest planeswalker, and perhaps this voodoo doll is telling of why he's been so misfortunate in the past.
What did you do to Lind? What did you do, Planeswalker? All right. Well, that is all of our preview cards for today. If you were just here for that, you can step out. But if you have questions, we're going to answer them. And we have a number of questions already set to go. I'll answer some of them. Corey will answer some of them. And then we will, and then one thing to keep in mind is Corey worked primarily on the Commander product. So if you've got questions about the main set, he may not be able to answer them. We may throw them at him anyway because he may tangentially know from working around people, but we'll see. Here's a question that I will answer because it has to do with the story. Will Chandra get a girlfriend? I'll just say, you know what? Continue reading the current magic fiction. Not going to give anything away, but continue reading the current magic fiction. I'll answer this one too. I'll run through some ones I can answer quickly. Will the full set be previewed today? Was one version, and then will all the cards and draft boosters be previewed today? So today is the last day of main set previews. Tomorrow, the full card image gallery will go up, and then I'll have some additional stuff that wasn't previewed, mostly commons, but that'll be up tomorrow. And then on 9/13, which is Monday, very spooky Monday, we are getting the full contents of the two commander decks, the ones that are led by Lenore and Wilhelt. I'm going Wilhelt.
Wilhelm.
Wilhelt. I don't care if that's how we pronounce his name. That's how I am pronouncing his
That's
name.
canon now.
Yep. I mean, it might just be correct. All right. Let's get to some questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Trying to get to ones I know Corey can answer first, and then we'll throw some at him that maybe he can answer. Let's see. How many commander cards are in the set booster? So, producer Sean, if we could throw up that graphic again. There it is. Yeah, so Corey, how many of these set booster and collector booster only commander cards are there?
Yeah, so in the set booster, it looks like there's two slots. How many are there? All of the ones we just previewed are all the new and exclusive ones. I
Eight. There's
don't.
8 total.
Yeah, new and exclusive ones. I don't remember if Commander card also includes new cards from the decks or not, or if those are just in the collector boosters.
It I'm gonna say it does, but I'm not 100% on that.
Sounds right to me.
Yeah, I believe it is. But yeah, there are. If the question is also like how many of these set booster only cards are there? There are 8. And then let's see. I'll answer this one because it's on the same topic. Do you have any response to the significant backlash from the community to this decision? It's talking about putting these cards in set boosters only. First of all, it's not the first time we've done this. And you know the community team certainly saw the reaction and shared that feedback, but it's not the first time we've done this. We did some set booster only cards earlier in the year. We've done some cards that were exclusive to theme boosters and a couple other products, so it isn't really new. And so we hear the feedback, but we also think that these are going to be cool things for people to open in set boosters that didn't really have a home in other places. So we do think it's in the fun, but you know what? We've heard the feedback and we passed it on to the studio for sure. Let's see. Corey, let's try. I'm going to say you can be cheeky about this answer.
Okay.
Will there be more tribal support for zombies, humans, spirits, and werewolves in Crimson Vow? I feel like many of them won't quite get there in standard with just this set.
I'll say for what I know of my commander stuff, for what I know of Innistrad, Innistrad is a pretty tribal aligned set. It's also a pretty graveyard aligned set, and that kind of comes priority. But that doesn't mean there's not room to make tools for different tribes. And in this commander deck, at the very least, yeah, that zombie deck is zombie tribal, and the humans deck has a little bit of human support. And I just watch out for the rest.
Okay. I'll answer this question. Now I'm just kind of going in kind of going in order. Corey, how long did the commander cards take to make?
So for these decks, they took a handful of months. I was working on a few Commander products kind of overlapping the same time, but I'd say per product release. So for Midnight Commander, maybe this took 3 or so months of development of the decks and the new cards with a little bit of tail time, something like that, something around that.
Cool. I'm going to answer this next question because I think it's an important question to talk about based on conversations in the community. Can you elaborate on the visible push to phase out draft boosters and replace them with set boosters? We are not, I'm going to look straight at the camera. We are not phasing out draft boosters. It's not a thing that's happening. So here's where that came from, though. It's a question that comes from like real world events. So back when we first introduced set boosters, um, people might recall that that also coincided with the time where we had some product delays. And so what ended up happening was that set boosters were not as delayed as draft boosters. I think it was for Strixhaven, if I'm remembering correctly. And so there were way more set boosters in the market than there were draft boosters, and there was a big imbalance. And so people would go to local game stores, want draft boosters, and be confronted with shelves of set boosters and no draft boosters. And that became this sort of conversation that because set boosters were new and were different, that we were explicitly pushing them. But as part of that, one, there were delays. Two, we were kind of right sizing the percentage. So we print X boosters. Some percentage of those are set boosters, some percentage of those are draft boosters. There's also collector boosters and all that stuff in there. But we're kind of right sizing, like how many set boosters, how many draft boosters. In some places, you can always get draft boosters. In some places, draft boosters sell out and you can only get set boosters. But there is no push to replace them. Draft boosters are not going anywhere. This feels like we've moved past the Wizards is trying to kill paper magic and moved on to Wizards is trying to kill this part of paper magic, and we're not. People still buy draft boosters. People still want draft boosters. They're not going anywhere. But I definitely get where that feeling came from because we had some printing issues, printing and distribution issues earlier in the year that were more related to COVID than anything else that kind of tipped that. Okay. Along those lines, why would a new player buy a set booster over a draft booster? Set boosters are designed to be exciting opening experiences,
Mm-hmm.
so they're built in a way that they kind of tell a story. I definitely suggest you check out, and you'll have to Google it. I can't remember what it's called or anything right now. When we introduced set boosters, Mark Rosewater talked about each of the slots, and like there's a head turner slot, and there's cards that are organized together. You'll get like a theme for some of the commons, and so set boosters are meant to be opening experiences, and draft boosters are meant to be, obviously you can open them and have a great time, but they're also meant specifically for drafting.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Corey, question for you. The commander decks of Midnight Hunt and those of Crimson Vow, were they designed together or separately?
Yeah, so they were designed. They were designed a little bit staggered, but they were very much overlapped in design. I led both of them. My friend and designer Chris Mooney led the vision designs on both of them, so we worked together very hand in hand. We knew we wanted to make them in context of each other, and we planned what they were doing with each other.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next up. So I'm gonna skip. I'm seeing a lot of Crimson Vow questions. I'm mostly gonna skip over those because we can't really answer Crimson Vow questions. If I see
Sorry,
one we
Chad.
can't answer it, I'll ask it. Yep, sorry. We haven't even released this set. It's let's be excited for this set. Is there a list to the updates to the cards on the list? There will be. It is. Oh nope, it's actually up today. It's up on Daily MTG, which has all the updates to the list. So yes, yes is the answer. Um. All right, Corey. Here's a question for you. What single color legendary creature, and we'll stick with the main set, are you most excited about?
What monocolor legendary creature? Is that the idea?
Yes. Hmm.
In the oh shit, stick to the main set.
Yes, you got to stick to the main set.
So I don't know if people know this that much, but I am the Black Color Pie representative on the Color Council, which is our team of designers to kind of safeguard the Color Pie values. And so that Jaren, the Ormandal DFC that we previewed earlier
Hmm.
this stream, that card is my favorite. Jaren as a mono black lover. I love big demons. I love aristocrats. I think it's going to be really hilarious to get to 13 life. So I'm a big fan of this card. I'm kind of split between these two art pieces because honestly, I love them both so much. I think they're
Hmm.
awesome. But this guy, this is when I see Jaren, I think, yeah, I just want to build a deck full of giant demon boys and, you know, terrorize my opponents.
Yep, makes sense. Um, a comment from someone that I don't think you've done set booster exclusive cards. You've 100% done theme booster though. What we actually did was in Kaldheim we had a set of cards that could be found in either set or theme boosters. Similarly, these can be found in set or collector boosters. So it's not an exact analogy, but it is very close. Ba, 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 ba. Let's see. Uh, let's see. Will there be 6 scarecrows in the commander decks for Reaper King players? You'll have to watch for that though. um let's see some more comments about the set versus draft booster. I can't speak to individual stores. Individual, like I said, the LGSs in my area that I've been to don't seem to have issues with draft booster, but again, it's going to be based on demand locally. But if there are imbalances, that's something that they can try to work out with their sales reps. Um, let's see, what can we? Why is the new Teferi busted? Corey, I know you didn't have anything to do with that, but
Is that a question you want me to answer?
sure, if you can.
I
It's
mean,
it's
I'm
not
pretty sure
busted, but you can yeah.
it's not busted. It's very fun and cool, and I think when it's working, it's working. I don't know,
Yeah.
kind of a catch-all answer, but I think that's a very sweet.
Okay, here's a question we can answer. Will there be a trailer for Midnight Hunt like previous sets? Yes. Look for it very soon. Let's see. Why does Crimson Vow have box toppers but not Midnight Hunt? Crimson Vow box toppers are special, and we'll just say that again. It's tough that we can't answer all of these questions, but yeah, stay tuned. Crimson Vow is very cool, but you know what? So is Midnight Hunt, and we're still getting through Midnight Hunt. Okay, Corey, here's a great question for you.
Ooh.
Is there a reason why you didn't make the curse legendary 5 colored so that it could use all of the curses available?
Yeah. Um, 5 color commanders. They exist. Generally, my philosophy is I like to steer away from 5 colors when there's not huge reasons to do so. And there's kind of multiple things at play for a cursed commander deck. First of all, the feeling, the personality, the attitude of curses, that didn't really fit into what we believe like green and white would care about. We thought cursing felt very Grixis. It felt very devious, dastardly, very sabotaging, and that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
a Grixis color MO. Secondly, yes, I know there is a really big white curse, but if I'm going to be honest, we didn't like to make a commander that promoted a game plan of getting, I think it's overwhelming splendor out every turn. That's just we tried 5 colors a little bit. It's just not something that we found to be a satisfying game plan. So decided that that was kind of the only reason to go to 5 colors. I know there's those more of those commander curses, but we were kind of more interested in sticking with the Grixis identity, and I guess Overwhelming Splendor existed was the straw on the camel's back that had us kind of recede back to Grixis. And I stand by the choice. I think it's still a cool card to play, and cool stuff can happen with it.
Yeah. Okay, so we're also getting a lot of questions about older werewolves and making them work with the current werewolves. And I know you didn't have anything to do with this, but were you part of any of the discussions about errating older werewolves?
I was not part of the discussion. From what I know Mark Rosewater was part of the discussion. He was all for it. If I had to take a side, I would be against it. I don't see a lot of benefit from making cards work differently. Um, for the werewolf stuff, I think Tovolar, like in Commander specifically, I think Tovolar does a really good job syncing up your werewolf timings. And so I
Hmm.
really like the way Tovolar does that. If Tovolar did a bad job syncing its timings, then I think we would have play tested more and try to figure out a way to align them. But even then, I'm not too broken up about it. I think what's going on makes sense, and I like the way Tovolar syncs it up, and I think that's going to be the most common use case of werewolves being used together, the day night stuff and the old ones.
All right. We've got another question on the curse commander, and I think you kind of addressed it, but I'll ask it anyway because it's a good question.
Yeah, totally.
Uh, uh, when you designed the curse commander, why did you choose Grixis over Mardu?
Yeah, it was mostly because the feeling of how I see Grixis. You know, those 3 colors are more. You know, they inflict outwardsly. White is kind of a can be a community color, can be a building color, can be a catch-up color. But if you look at black, obviously black is very about inflicting on your opponents. Blue also has a lot of things that's about inflicting your opponents. You see a lot of like mind reading and psychic offensive flavor stuff in blue, which kind of feels in line with curses. And then red is also a very aggressive color in general. So those 3 colors in our mind, kind of, if we were thinking about, oh, okay, what is like spooky, evil, magic, enchanting? It's like, okay, those colors fit together well. Um, I can see where some people could think, oh, maybe white cares more about enchantments. But these aren't just enchantments, they're curses, and it's kind of fun to express this kind of enchanty deck without using white, like using colors that don't often do that because they feel so resonantly about curses.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I can't really think of a reason a white like mage would curse their opponents that much. If I were just, I guess I'm kind of stuck in the. This is especially true of Innistrad, I'll say.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm pretty happy with Grixis. I think Grixis by far feels more cursing.
Okay. Here's a great question about werewolves and commander. Do you think anything would be broken for commander if we errated old werewolves in our own groups? So if they set like um, a local group rule that werewolves all flip together, do you think that would break anything?
So I haven't looked at the specific cards. I would have to like think about the card interaction a little bit more. But in general, I don't think anything is broken. If you're in your own group and you want to play werewolves a different way, go for it. That's rule zero. That's what Commander's about. Make your own fun. I'm a game designer. All I do is make my own fun, but mine's a little bit more professional. You can go at your own table, um, make rules that you want. I think that's totally fun and encouraged. And hey, maybe let me know how it is. Maybe tweet me at Twitter and just tell me if that plays fun.
All right, I'm still. Let's see. There's a lot of good questions in chat that either aren't really Corey's area. There was a great question about art, for example. That's just not Corey's area of expertise. Um, so I'm looking for other commander specific questions. Let's see. And we're almost out of time, so we'll get like one or two more questions. And again, he had. Let's see. Is there a reason why Ulrich isn't in the set as a red-green werewolf legend. It's not really involved in this story, I think, is the big reason. All right, here's a commander card. Question: How does Corey feel about cards with hybrid mana that are effectively multicolored gold cards via commander's color identity rules?
How to answer this? I will say that they're. I don't know how I feel. I think that the rules committee of Commander have a lot of good reasons to retain the rules that they are. I don't know. I've thought about playing around with that rule like at my personal tables before, um, but I just haven't really got into it. I don't know. I in general like we don't at Wizards we don't have a lot of say in the commander rules. We kind of we have good communication with the rules committee. Sheldon was here for a month. I'm good friends with Sheldon. I talked to some of the other commander committee and some of the commander advisor, the CAG, a little bit as well. Um, but it's kind of out of my control, so I don't really fight things that are out of my control.
Mm-hmm. All right. What's your go-to commander?
My go-to commander, yes. All right, so right now I have my one of my more frequent decks. I have this like rotating artifact deck, but more recently I'm playing Marchesa, the Black Rose, but it's
Hmm.
all artifact creatures, and the idea is that modular creatures. Modular is like artifact creatures that enter with 1/1
Mm-hmm.
counters. When they die, they put their 1/1 counters on something else. The deck is really leveraging artifact creatures. It's leveraging modular. You get a sack outlet, mainly Arcbound Ravager, with your Marchesa, and then you just kind of are the most resilient thing alive because if anyone targets your stuff, you just sack your whole board and they'll come back at the end step. There's great ways to make Marchesa an artifact so that you can use modular and put counters on her. I use Phyrexian Metamorph for that. I actually use this one Black Saga from Dominaria. It literally puts a counter on something and makes it an artifact creature. So it just and then it
Mm.
destroys everything next turn. So it's like
Yeah.
okay, I was looking for cards that turn Marchesa into an artifact so I can put counters on her, and this card just does both. So that's one deck I
Nice.
play a lot. Another deck I'm playing recently is an Anawan Rogues with the even cost restriction, so I can play Gyruda. I'm trying to build a bunch of commander decks out of legends I've personally designed, and I did the Anawan Rogues deck in Zendikar Rising, so I'm having a lot of fun with that as well.
Yeah. Cool. All right, last question since we're out of time, not because your chat's questions aren't great. There's a lot of great questions coming. But I thought this was a good question since you were on both sets. Are the Midnight Hunt and
Mhm.
Crimson Vow commander decks balanced for play against each other?
Yeah. Yes. I
Cool.
don't know.
Easy
I
enough.
could expand on that, but it's mostly just yes. Yeah, they are. In general, like a lot of these commander decks that are coming out next to sets that are adjacent together. When we play
Hmm.
test, we obviously need 4 decks to play test, and mirror matches are a little bit weird in playtest data. So we'll take like the 2 decks we're working on, and maybe 2 decks from the set behind us, or from the set in front of us, or from just some other set around. So a lot of the commander decks that release around the same time are play tested around with each other. But for Innistrad
Hmm.
specifically, these ones were played with each other and against each other for sure.
Yeah. All right. Great. Well, before we go, a couple things. One, let's show the 3 preview cards that we revealed on this stream again, producer Sean, if you could. So we've got Malevolent Hermit, Benevolent Geist, and then we've got Jaren, Corrupted Bishop, and Ormandal the Corrupter. That cool Eternal Knight art. And then finally, Lind, Cheerful Tormentor. And that one is found in set and collector boosters. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Corey, for walking us through all of this and answering a bunch of questions. Um, next week we will be back. I'm going to actually be in the Wizards of the Coast building because we are doing our product opening. So we're going to open a bunch of boxes, and we'll see some of those set booster cards. We'll see everything because we'll often open draft boosters, we'll open set boosters, collector boosters, all of that stuff. And we're going to have a little fun with it next week. So definitely tune in next week. Corey, thank you for joining us. Everyone, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next